That feeling when you look around your apartment and realize that your artwork is all framed maps. I'm a map person.
Love map. That feeling when you see a black bear in your yard and all you want to do is give it a big hug.
I'd hug a bear. I'd totally hug a bear. I'd probably hug an alligator, honestly. Why not?
A friend of mine got a chainsaw from her fiance for their anniversary. Now that's love.
Oh, wow. Have such a good day. Hello, world, and welcome to Have Such a Good Day, the show that wants you to do just that.
Hey, gang. Welcome to episode 115. I'm Heather. And
I'm Sarah.
This is the show that unpacks the absurdity of everyday life for your entertainment. And remember what I said last time? Or did you forget? Because we're all in this together, all of you, wherever you may be in the world. How are you all doing?
Yeah, that's a great reminder. Thank you.
I'm going to drill it in.
Oh, everybody, here we are, 115. You know, I mean, life has never looked more rosy.
Yeah, we're in we're in that like part of the year where we're like stacking wood and picking all the blackberries and, you know, scheming our fall and winter crops, like what we're going to plant. I kind of like it's like I'm sort of sad to see summer wind down, but it's also kind of like a nice, crisp, nostalgic feeling to enter another season. You know what I mean? You know that
Sort
feeling?
of. No, yeah, no, I do. No, I mean, I totally
Sweater
do.
weather.
We are not there yet in my neck of the woods. It is hot as shit. And it's a really weird time of year because, okay, so we're, the first week of September. And so, in Sonoma County, that means we're going to have like heat waves for at least another month, maybe even a little bit more. But the leaves are starting to change, and the light is starting to change. You know, like in the morning, I notice now that like, oh wow, the light doesn't hit my skylight the way that it did the last 3 months because we're that much farther away from the summer equinox. But it's still hot. But it's weird. Like the light is weird.
It's a weird feeling. It's weird when like Halloween rolls around and it's hot. Like that's always sort of like a marker for me. I always felt like in Los Angeles, it would be cold. It would like become cold the night of Halloween, like that exact night. But yeah, in October October heat is definitely a little disconcerting.
Yeah, we're still in fire season around here. So it's like, I mean, we have been so lucky. There have been no rolling blackouts. There have been no evacuations.
there hasn't.
Stuff that I've been dealing with for the last couple years, and kind of not happy about it, but seemed sort of normal to me.
You're hashtag blessed, Sarah.
I am blessed. I am blessed. I'm blessed and thankful and grateful.
I'm glad to hear it.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be living it. And listen, this could change on a dime. I really do. I wish that this was never a thing that I talked about ever. There are times where I think like, what state can I move to in the U.S. or abroad, really, where I just never have to deal with this anymore. Although I have a friend who lives in Amsterdam now, sort of temporarily, but like they might be there for a while. And she's like, Sarah, it rains every day.
Oh no!
It just rains every day. Like it's warm, and of course, like because they're up really high. When you're looking at a map, maps. But she's like, it's just relentless, just sort of sad weather because she doesn't really like rain.
Yeah.
Where I'm kind of like, I mean, I feel like I like rain. until it happens. And then I'm like, oh, rain, everything's
And you're like,
dirty and
and
muddy.
then like
Yeah.
Otis's, like dirty ponds. It's a whole
Oh
thing.
gosh, it's a
Yeah.
whole thing. But it feels like so long since I even remember how
Because
that
it was a
went.
long time.
It was, yeah. I mean, I
Truly.
think the last time it rained here was like February.
You know
So,
what'd be a cool company to start is like a some kind of like an augmented reality rain room where you can like in the drought like stricken world, you can actually go and experience sort of a synthetic kind of rain. That's
and
my
just sort of
brilliant idea for
just
the
get
day.
wet.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
just
just be like,
and
look,
there's
I'm
like thunder
soaked.
and lightning and you're in this room and it's like you just, because
Gosh,
we
we're
we may
probably not
not
that
have
far
many
away
rainy
from
days.
something like that,
I know. I'm thinking
honestly.
too. Someone's out there developing it. Fess up.
Yeah. Yeah, you MoMA people. I know you're
Total
doing it.
MoMA. Yeah. Or Snapchat, one of those.
Yeah, right, right. MoMA or Snapchat also. A big art community on
Kind of
Snapchat.
different, but
Yeah. Well, Heather, I don't know how your week has been, but
Well, you're going to find out
yeah, I am. I
whether
can't
you like
wait.
it or not.
It's gonna be great. But so last week, obviously on the show, it. By the way, if you didn't listen to last week's show, that would be episode 114, and I, told everybody kind of, I'm going through some health issues, and because of that, and I don't want to like just like belabor that whole thing, because I don't actually have anything to tell you. Some stuff is going to be happening later this week, and so I'll probably know more next week. But I don't really know anything at this point. But because I sort of like went public, like, hey, I've got cancer, everybody, and that was sort of to just take it off my own chest and just kind of not have to make all these phone calls, to people that I care about who would want to know. There have been, of course, like really good friends of mine already kind of knew about it,
Yeah.
and other friends of mine didn't. And I actually had I had a like a fun reunion dinner with a friend a couple weeks ago, and I knew about it, but I hadn't seen her in so many years. Hallie, by the way, talking about you,
Hey, Hallie.
that I just didn't mention it because I'm just like, this will just derail the whole
Yeah,
like
you'll be
catch
talking about
up
it the whole
thing.
night.
Yeah, like everything else will seem
Yeah.
silly and superficial, and
Totally.
I just wanted to hang out, and it's so rare that I go to a restaurant anyway, and so there's all of that stuff. But then there are the people that kind of come out of the woodwork that you aren't really all that close with, but really want to connect. And I had one of those situations the other day with, I am very confident he doesn't listen to the show, but just in case, I just won't say his name. But it's a guy that I grew up with. I don't think we went to grade school together. I think he showed up in high school, but he was a bad kid. And, and what I mean by that is just like, was getting in trouble a lot, had to go to the continuation school. There maybe was some arrests that had happened. I don't totally remember, but I remember that he was a nice person to me, but he frightened me. Like I was never, I consider myself bad kid adjacent. Like I
Totally, me
was like
too.
I was a good student. I cared
But you
about,
partied.
cared about doing well. But yeah, but like I didn't have a problem hanging out with like problematic kids.
No.
Where other kids totally avoided them, it was like, oh, it's us and them, and I was like, they're fun, but up to a point. And I remember being in a car with this guy. He was driving. I think it was a truck, but doesn't matter. But it was like a bunch of us in a truck, and we're like going to like some like weird party in the orchards. And I remember being like, I need to get out of this car. Like, I'm scared. Like he's erratic and I don't know if this is safe for me. And there have been more than one time in my youth, and I'm sure some of you can relate, where you're just like, yeah, I don't need to be here. This is too much for me. Anyway, so this was this, high school friend of mine, totally lost touch, have not kept in touch with him. But some time ago on Facebook, we had, became Facebook friends. I'm like, yeah, I know who you are. We can be Facebook friends. And he's had a personal journey of addiction and a lot of stuff. And that is something that I only know about because we're Facebook friends. And some of that is, being shared publicly, or at least among his friends. And so, so there's that. And I have a few people who I'm still close with from friendship that know him. So I know that he is who he is. But we have not spoken in since I was like 17 years old, kind of thing. Wouldn't know him on the street, probably. And the other day, he calls me. And it was a Facebook, like, audio message, right? So his name comes up because we're Facebook friends. It's not like he, like, knows my number necessarily. And I see his name, and you know that feeling where you're sort of like, do I pick this up?
Was that a mistake? Because, sometimes you can be like butt dialed or hit the wrong
Totally.
button.
Yeah. It was in the middle of the day. It didn't seem weird, and I was kind of like, I wasn't really in the middle of anything. So I answered. And we talked for like almost 2 hours.
Oh, way.
And yeah. And it was funny because it's like, we don't really we know a lot of the same people, but we don't have these like, remember when you and I did that crazy thing together? It's like, no, we weren't really friends like that.
Interesting.
I just knew him, and I knew that I thought that he was too wild for me, and like didn't want to have him behind the wheel if I was in the car, kind of thing. And he was so nice and so sort of candid about his struggles in life, because we all have them. His are different than mine, but he was like, I want to know how your health is doing. Tell me everything. And I was like, I mean, do you really? Like, this is so weird. And he's like, no, I really do. And so we talked and talked and talked, and he's such a nice person.
Wow.
I mean, and like people are troubled. I think about this a lot. People are troubled in their own ways for so many reasons. And we've got our demons, and everybody's dealing with them, and everyone's story is different. And his is not at all the same story as mine, but he's a really nice person. And I just felt like, wow. And to be clear, I mean, lots of other people have come out of the word work and been like, hey, Sarah, how are you? I saw your news, and, how you doing? And I know we haven't talked in a while. And I love all of that. But for somebody so kind of rando
Totally.
to be like, I care about you and I want to know what's going on, and I've got time. Let's talk. I was so touched by that. And it just reminds me that well, some people you should write off, but there are so many people that you shouldn't write off, even though they're not your people necessarily.
Totally.
Because there are just many layers to all of us.
There's so many layers. Totally. Does he live in the area?
And he does. Yeah. And it's funny because I had told him, I take my dog to this dog park every so often. And I guess that's kind of near where he lives. And he hit me up yesterday and was like, hey, are you taking Otis to the dog park? Like, I'll bring my dog down there and we can hang out. And I'll bring snacks. And I hadn't done that, so it didn't happen. But I was like, this is actually really cool. Like, you're such a cool person. And I care so much about him and the fact that he has had a hard time in life for a lot of reasons. And a lot of that stuff, like, I didn't even know about. When we were kids, I was just like, you're a bad kid.
Sure.
But now, having heard so much background, I was like,
Now it all
I
makes
see.
sense.
yeah, like why a lot of this stuff happened, and you're not a bad person. And
Hmm.
I would never say that about you anymore.
Hmm.
And, we'll meet up at some point and we'll have some snacks.
Snacks is it's an icebreaker.
Yeah, yeah. It was a very funny scenario where I was like, this is just ridiculous that we're talking right now. And it wasn't like, and like to be super clear, like it wasn't flirtatious.
Yeah,
It wasn't like, oh, I'm like trying to rekindle something with you. That was never the deal at all.
sure.
It was just like an
Which is
adult.
also refreshing.
Yeah, for sure. An adult dude who I knew when I was a kid was like, "Hey, I care about you." And I
Hmm.
was like, "You do?" And yeah, like I think we'll be friends,
I
and
love it.
I'd like to care about him as well.
You
And
know,
so that's that story.
I think it's great. And it just like brings up a lot of thoughts. One of them is it's really fun to make new friends. I mean, he's sort of an old friend, but you weren't really friends back then. So I would consider him sort of a new friend. And it just really goes to show you can continue to make new friends as you get older and move to different towns. And it's refreshing. It's like so neat to hear other people's stories that you're not used to, you know, because you're always
Yeah.
listening to your friends, your core group's problems and that sort of thing. So that's really great. And sure, I mean, a crisis does really bring people out of the woodwork, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it was my heart was warmed by the whole
Aw,
thing,
I'm so
honestly.
glad.
And yeah, and yeah, I don't know. I
There's always silver linings.
Very much so. And you just everybody needs a second chance.
It's so true.
And I well, again, not everybody needs a second chance, but many people are just they're just trying to do their best.
Yeah,
I know I am. And so it was just a really great reminder that you can look past certain things
sure.
and see the good in somebody and really appreciate that.
No, totally. And it's so funny because I feel like I really focus on that when I meet people because I have a wide array of friends and I have some of my good friends have like like a kind of a typical kind of friend. And like when they meet someone who might be a little more, I don't know, businessy and academic, and like there's like immediately kind of discount that they could even be close to someone like that that's like so different than they are. But I like the variety. I have some friends that are, I mean, I have just like this wide spectrum of people in my life that I love, and they're all very different. And I like enjoy that experience as opposed to everybody being so much the same with the same exact interests and that kind of thing. But that's a whole thing to unpack on another episode, I think,
I know.
because
We'll
whew,
do we'll do a theme episode at some point of just
yes,
like the weirdo
friendships.
friends
Yeah, perfect strangers. Yeah.
who we all have. But enough about that. Heather, how was your week? Did anything stand out to you this
Oh my
week?
goodness. Yes, there was like a big standout moment. And it's so funny. I'm still kind of like savoring it because it was really exciting. And I just feel so silly, but it was just, I don't know what it was. It was so exciting on so many levels. So we essentially had a visitor on my property. And to give you a little context, I've explained the way our property is set up a little bit, but we have a bunch of gardens, and a lot of the gardens and the landscaping are out in the open. They're just like on, there's like a heather garden by the ocean behind the house, and then there's this other garden that's kind of on the side of the art studio, and then there's like, kind of peppered around. There's just different areas that are not themed or anything. They're just like different types of landscaping and different things grow there. But then we have a fenced in garden that is a vegetable garden. We have a greenhouse in there, which is where I make all my hothouse plants like the tomatoes and the cucumbers and the peppers. And then in that same fenced in garden, there's a flower garden. And what my dad did was he planted flowers that like deer like to eat, like roses and tulips and things that are just like nom nami for, wildlife. So we fenced it all in, and it's supposedly an electrical fence, but I don't think that's been working for a long time, which I'm kind of glad because I wouldn't really want to zap any animals. But we I'm kind of coming to like the other morning around 6-ish in the morning, and my boyfriend comes in. He usually gets up before me, and he's basically like, you got to get up like right now, like get up really quickly. And I'm still like kind of in a stupor, like I'm slowly waking up, and I'm like, what? Like, oh my God, what? A million things like crossed my mind, and I was kind of
Right. Yeah. The
worried,
house is on fire.
Yeah, I
Like
really
what's
thought
happening?
that. And so he has me run to the window, and he's like, "There's a bear in the garden," and I'm like, "No way." No, I don't believe you. Because he jokes with me, and he's very good at kind of like, I'm pretty gullible, but he's also really good at like a deadpan. Like he'll make me believe something that's like far fetched. And I look out the window and I see kind of like a medium sized black bear just eating apples in our garden. And this is in our fenced garden. This is not out in the open. We see deer. I mean, I see deer all the time on the property, and they're out in the open, and they come to the heather garden and they go kind of all around. But no, it's weird to see, knowing the parameters of this garden. I know it very well. And just knowing that he was inside, the door was locked. How did he get in there? And it was just this crazy moment. And so we tiptoed out the front door. We were super quiet, and we kind of like hid behind our truck, and we stared at him for a while. And it was just so majestic to see, something that you just do not see every day. Maybe never in a lifetime would you even
Right.
see an animal like
Yeah.
this. And it
Yeah.
just was really exciting. And, then he's kind of, we're watching him for, I don't know, a minute or so. And then he looks up, and he just looks right in my eyes with this kind of like scowl, because like they are scared of us, obviously. And he
Right.
immediately jetted off, and his cute like blubber flapping, and he's like running to the back of the garden, and you hear this kind of crunching noise, and then he's gone. And so we obviously had to, we went out into the garden after that. We kind of tried to not, I guess I tried to follow him, and my boyfriend's like, "You're crazy. What are you doing?"
Yeah. You
And
don't run after a bear.
I am such an animal lover, and of course, I know he'd rip me to shreds. It's not like I'm ignorant of that. But I don't know. It was just such a fun experience seeing what you would hope to be a soft and cuddly animal, and I just wanted to see where he was going, and
So how did he get in?
well, that's the
If it's
interesting thing. So there
fenced?
was all this like sort of evidence of him being in there after like we were looking around to see, how did he get in? Like, what did he get into other than like the apples? Because we have several apple trees in there, and a lot of them have fallen to the ground. I mean, who knows? But so there's this netting that's like, it's at least 10 feet, if not more. And it's like a kind of a really strong, wiry kind of netting, and really hard to get into. You can't bite through it. But what he did was, what it looked like is that he leaned into it, and kind of leaned on the netting, and it ripped at the top, so he could kind of like roll over it, kind of. And he rolled into this one side of the garden, and he broke part of a tree. I mean, he broke some very large pieces of our apricot tree. So there was like a lot of detritus, Then you see like, half cucumbers from the compost, like strewn everywhere. I mean, he looks like he likes cucumbers. And
Oh my God, I feel like you have a pet
I
bear.
know, no, see, that's how I felt. And that's why I was kind of like, no, come back. I was like, I'll bring you some apples next time. Like, I'll leave a box out for you.
Yeah, like you don't have to try so hard. Like we'll feed
I
you.
know, exactly. I'm like, bring your friends. And then my boyfriend's like, you cray. It's like, I don't know. I'm sad for animals right now, especially in California. The wildlife is really suffering. I'm sure that it's very possible
It's
he's
true.
fleeing one of the fires, because there's quite a few
Yes.
fires nearby to the east. It's this time of year that they're hungry too. It's berry season. And I'm like, where did he go? Does he have friends and family nearby? So we actually went down the driveway, and it was still dark. I mean, it was like 6:30 in the morning. So it was like that kind of creepy early morning low light
Right.
sort of
Yeah.
vibe.
Where you
Everyone's still
don't,
in
yeah, you don't
bed.
have like total visibility yet.
Exactly. And my boyfriend's like, this is stupid. Like, this is not smart to do this. And I'm like, no, we're good. We're good. And it was a little creepy, but we walked up the driveway and down the other driveway in a loop just to kind of like see where he went.
Well, the thing is, too, is that I know, I mean, some of you might be more of a bear expert than I am, but I have seen a few bears like on like fishing trips with my dad when I was a kid. I have never seen a bear around where I live now. I don't know how many bears are around here. We definitely have mountain lions though.
Oh, yeah.
And, so my guard is up,
Yeah.
especially if I'm walking
Early
anytime that's not like
morning.
high noon.
It's like dawn and
Exactly.
dusk that they come out.
But I mean, I remember, like the first time I saw a bear as a kid, my dad was like, "Look," and I'm like, "Oh my God, I love it."
It's quite an experience. It's like, I remember, and it really
They're
made me.
so like they're so adorable.
They have like that curved back, and they're just like, it just sort of made me think about a lot of things. It made me think about how we treat animals. I mean, there are a lot of animal lovers out there. I'm not talking about you, but like, I think there's a lot of people who don't respect animals as they should. I mean, I think
yeah.
being a human, it's almost like, for me personally, like instead of believing in God, it's like for me, I bow down to nature and animals because they were kind of here before us. They have a wealth of knowledge that, we can't tap into, obviously. And I just find them, I cherish them. And I feel like we should too. We should be going out of our way to save them and help them. And, it's our world that is burning down, and it's stuff that we've created. And it just breaks my heart. It really does. And I've always been this way. I've always wanted to save the animals. In fact, my first choice on like an actual real job when I was like in high school was I wanted to be a biologist, and I wanted to like save the rainforests, like something sort of silly like that. But I just,
Well, it's not silly.
well, I have
It's
a bleeding heart for
admirable.
animals because there's only so much they can do. I mean, sure, they can run away, but like, if their ecosystem is being burnt down and all their food is being burnt to a crisp, it's like, God, please come over here and eat my apples. I can't eat them all. Like I would
Yeah.
love for you to come by, have some tea. But I want to know,
Yeah.
have you out there had a run-in with a wild animal like in your yard? Please tell us about it. Hi at havesuchagoodday.com. But it did remind me of one experience I had. I went to Glacier National Park in Montana. This is in college. And we stupidly went on a long backpacking trip, like basically at the end of winter. So there was still snow on the ground. It was freezing. I'm like, what are we doing? But I was like a tough young person. And I ran into a moose. And it was this similar experience where you stop dead in your tracks and you catch eyes, and they're staring at you and you're staring back. And it's like, what's going to happen? He's going to run at me, because moose are actually quite violent. And he was really hungry. He was really skinny. It was the end of winter. He was like looking for food.
buddy.
And it was just like, it was really similar to that experience. And yeah, it's just, wow. It was pretty cool. I'd say that was the highlight of my week.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love animals. We both joke like I love animals more than people, but I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it's 100% true.
I know.
I mean, they're like, like my friend from high school turned out to be a okay dude, but like there are a lot of people I do not like. Don't want you in my life.
Yeah.
Bye. But animals, I really don't. I feel for them, and I also kind of feel like it's like, yes, of course, as humans, we're the elevated species, and we've figured out all
Sure.
the stuff, and we have opposable thumbs, and
Yep.
we science and computers, and just imagine being a bear, being like, I just want to eat,
Yeah.
and like you don't have resources, like
Yeah.
nobody's gonna like come to your aid
There's only so
as
much
the
you
bear.
can
Yeah.
with
Well,
your
but like
surroundings.
like your bear community is like they're also like just like trying to eat.
do. Totally.
You don't humans could say, well, I need to apply for a financial aid or something, and for lots of great reasons that people do that. But animals are just like, fending for themselves. And
Yep.
even our pets, I look
Totally.
at my dog all the time and I'm just like, I hope I'm giving him a good life because he has no other choice but to
Yep.
have the life that I'm giving him,
Exactly. And that's why
And
you,
that
yeah,
it just like, oh, it just makes me cry.
I know, me too. Me too. It's funny because I know someone who used to live up here in this area, and there's a lot of ways you can help animals. I know, and I've done a lot of volunteer work in Los Angeles area, but I'm going to look into it. The only problem that I see is because there's, if there's like a hit deer on the highway, like you can get involved in like being that person who goes to see how they are and get someone out there to help them. And like you can be like, I would love to do something that's like bigger than just like cleaning cages and, kind of the general volunteering job.
Yeah,
But then I'm
yeah.
like, I'm going to get more sad. And it's like I'm conflicted because I want so badly to help them, but I know that it's going to make me come home at night and feel worse because I'm going to know more about like statistics and, how often a deer gets shot or like whatever. And I don't want to know that. Like ignorance is bliss. I mean, as long as I can, keep that ignorance going, I hope to not, have too much pain from it. But
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you on that. Well, speaking of people taking care of things, I wanted to take a moment to say to everybody out there that if you haven't thanked your local nurse lately, thank that local nurse because nurses are angels.
yep.
And the reason that I say this is because obviously I've I've been in hospitals so much lately and I have to go tomorrow. Not looking forward to it, but I got to do it. But when when I'm obviously I'm like in oncology at this point, so like my situation is very different than what someone else's situation might be if they had to go to a hospital. But in my situation, I have these nurses who are kind of like, they're like my pack. Like we're in a pack, and they're like, okay, we got you, we got you. And then the doctor comes in and the doctor does the thing that the doctor's supposed to do. And then the doctor leaves and, the nurses kind of take care of you and make sure you're good and, hold your hand and that sort of thing. And this is not to say that anything that a doctor does is not short of miraculous. And I am so thankful that, we have people on all parts of the medical spectrum. But the nurses are really the people that take care of you.
Yeah.
And and I knew that already, but I've definitely been reminded of that recently. And it's funny because one of my cousins, my cousin Molly, hi Molly, if you're
Hey,
listening, she
Molly.
sometimes listens to the show. Yeah, Heather knows Molly. She has been an ER nurse for years. I mean, that's what she,
And
went
that's
to
on
grad
another
school
level,
for. And
ER.
oh yeah, and for a while she was an ER nurse overnight. Like she was the overnight shift
Oh,
ER
man.
nurse, which is like, I
Brutal.
mean, and just like
The stories.
shout out to anybody who can just be like, okay, well, I have to like sleep for a while because then I have to go back to the ER tonight, and stay awake all night. I mean, she was so good at that, and I would
Wow.
hear the stories, and I'd be like, that I don't even know how you're like alive. I mean, it sounds like such a nightmare, but people have to do it. And she kind of liked it. She was sort of like, overnight, you kind of, there may be like fewer managers watching over you. It's like you kind of, you can kind of run your shit. And that said, it's like at 3 a.m. when somebody comes in with an ER emergency, like it's a gunshot or it's an OD or, something else pretty horrible. And she was just, that was her job. And I would hear stories every once in a while and just be like, I just don't know how you do this. So she, like I said, she's been doing it for a while and she got married a few years ago, had a baby, and then COVID hit. And all of those things together, I knew what hospital she worked at. She's in Los Angeles. And, I was always kind of like, God, are you okay? Like, this must be awful. Like, what do you like burn your clothes before you walk into the house at the end of the day, like every day kind of thing?
Gosh.
Right. And, just so much, particularly with the COVID stuff,
Sure.
but just ER stuff in general. And in LA, it's always an adventure with, with people who are coming in. So I guess what happened was a hospital that had been around for 76 years called Olympia closed recently. I was not familiar with this hospital, but it's in LA proper somewhere. Closed recently, and Kaiser, where she worked, got a bulk load of their patients. Like they had to go somewhere. And she told me that she well, first of all, the story started with she was like, "Yeah, I left the ER clinic. I couldn't do it anymore. I'm now like in a nurse clinic where I'm like giving people vaccines and helping people who need to be educated on like type 2 diabetes. It's super
Hmm.
mellow. I couldn't do it anymore." And I was like, "Well, okay, that's
Wow.
fine." Yeah, like of course. Like
She
I mean,
needs the
you're a nurse.
excitement.
Yeah, like you can work wherever you want. And I was like, "Well, what happened?" And she was like, "Well, um I was like strangled, spit on, punched, assaulted, pooped on."
Oh my
I mean,
God.
and that was just like so many years of that went by, and then when COVID, that's like not even COVID stuff. That's just like crazy patients, right? And then when you get to the point where you're like, well, if you spit on me, now I'm really scared for my life. Over and over again, she was like, I had to go. I had to get out of there. And I don't know, I sat there for a while yesterday thinking about how somebody deals with all of that and still comes to work every day saying, okay, ready to save
Yep.
lives, and have that happen to you.
Oh yeah.
It not going to be me.
No.
And I just wanted to say big ups to the nurses of the world
Oh yeah.
because you are you're
Saving
great.
lives.
You're saving lives, and you're also putting up with a lot of BS
Oh yeah.
that I'm sure it's hard not to take home with you.
Hmm.
And and I just big hearts from me.
Huge heart emojis. And I think that also just dealing with like the bureaucracy of the healthcare system has got to be like a huge part of their job and such a huge pain to deal with every day.
Yeah.
And no, I agree. I'm so with you on this. And my aunt was a ER nurse for her whole life. She's retired now, and she used to have the craziest stories. And yeah, you just have to be a certain kind of person to be able to deal with something like that. All that trauma. I mean, to see all that
Yeah.
trauma and to go home at night to like your child and your husband and just sort of, that's just got to be such a crazy experience.
Such a crazy experience. And so, you know, I mean, I actually don't know what nurses make, but I'm positive that it's not enough.
Yeah, of course
Uh,
not.
based on what I've heard, and I know my cousin she's got a couple of friends who also went into nursing, and nursing is, you can go into lots of different areas of nursing, but I've been around them, where everyone's not having the best day,
Yeah.
and they're all talking about like, yeah, I had a bad day yesterday and this is what happened, and I'm like, because someone punched you in the face? Like, I cannot
No.
imagine that being part of my job where I'm like, yeah, it was kind of a sucky day because
Yeah.
someone punched me in the face.
Well, it really puts
Like,
things
that
into
would be like,
perspective.
yeah, it really does.
And like
It
when you
really
wake up
does.
on the wrong side of the bed or you're just like, you're just not in the mood, and then you have to go record a podcast, and it can be hard. I mean, you have to like let go and you have to entertain, or, like that's our world. but like to have a bad night's sleep and wake up on the wrong side of the bed and have to go in to save lives. I mean, can you imagine how hard that must be? So
I can't
serious,
really.
huge
No.
props, huge props.
Huge props. Yeah. Big ups to the nurses. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, I feel like what I'm going to talk about is not nearly as important and critical as what you just talked about, but we're going to switch gears a little bit because that's
Let's do
just what
it.
we do on this show. So I went back to the movies, Sarah, this weekend for the first time in about a year and a half. I sometimes it's like again that time thing. It's like God, it's really been that long, but then it does feel long, but also short. I don't know. And the last time I was in a movie theater was February 2020. I saw the movie The Lodge, that horror movie, at the ArcLight. It was like a special screening. This is in Los Angeles, and now this huge movie theater, shockingly, is closed like permanently, which is so crazy. But I
The
used to go to a
arc
lot
light
of
is closed?
yeah, it's like permanently closed because of the
Wow. I didn't know
pandemic.
that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible.
I know, isn't that crazy? You would think that I mean, I get like an artsy movie house.
Yeah.
I used to go to a lot of like opening nights or special screenings, and I've missed it, I guess, this last year. But I also feel like we have a good setup at home. We have a huge movie library. Like we're good. But you know, it's fun the outing of going to a movie, you know, going to a matinee and getting some popcorn. It's just like something to do that's just a change of scenery. So we were like, let's go see Candyman. I mean, why not? It's like there's a theater, you know, in the adjacent town that we hadn't been to, and it was open. And we were like, let's go
Cannot
see a
believe
matinee.
you saw Candyman.
It was really fun, actually. It was,
Yeah?
yeah, it really
Did you
was. I
feel
think you would
scared
like
about
it.
saying it 3 times in a mirror after you
No,
saw
five
the movie?
times.
Oh,
Five
five times.
Yeah.
I
It
guess
might
I
have been three
remember.
in the original.
I I I don't know. Who
They tweaked
knows?
it a little bit. I mean, it's definitely like, you know, it's like a modernized horror take, kind of remake. You know, it's got a lot of social commentary and that kind of stuff. And I thought it was pretty good in terms of, you know, a remake, because a lot of times remakes are just like, and the original was really good. And but
Yeah.
it was just fun. It was fun going to theater, but I have to say it was really interesting. So I was kind of nervous to go into this theater because it's like, you know how a lot of theaters are just like ghetto looking on the outside. It's not an art house movie house. It's a, you know, kind of just a regular theater, like nothing too special, but it's so shabby on the outside, needs a paint job, like just looks kind of scary, like a movie theater in like
Yeah, were
Dawn of
you
the
like
Dead or something.
trudging in? Like,
Yeah.
okay, let's
And
go
it looks
see a
dirty,
movie.
you know? And then like
Yeah.
especially with like the COVID stuff, you got to wear a mask, but it was surprisingly nice inside. Like it was nice. It was just definitely like a nice theater. And I was like, oh, cool. And you smell the popcorn and you're walking down the hall, you know, and you see the different rooms and it's kind of like exciting. But I have to say that when I got into the theater and we found our seats, there was only one other person at the time in the back. So we, you know, we went like at least 5 rows in front of that person in the middle, had our own little area. And I was like, okay, I could take off my mask and, you know, there's no real threat, you know, but I was a little nervous about it. And then, of course, a whole gaggle of people came in after the movie started and it was all dark. And I was like a little uncomfortable because they sat really close to us and it was weird. It was a weird feeling because normally I'm just kind of like, that's cool. I don't love to be elbow and elbow, even pre and before times. I didn't like that at the theater. I'd rather have a seat between, you know, a stranger.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
this was different. It was like, it's weird to sit next to someone eating popcorn, like pulling their mask off. And they weren't sitting right next to me, but they were like behind me, next to me kind of thing. And I
Yeah,
just,
and you kind of like keep looking back, like, are you
yes,
doing it right?
totally. And I felt like this territorial feeling. And also eating popcorn with a mask on. I mean, that's got to be the hardest thing to eat because you're eating one kernel at a time or you're eating like a handful. So like, what's the point? Anyway, it was going back to the movie theater. It was kind of like riding a bike, honestly. Um, you know, I think that the Candyman remake was worth seeing in terms of just like an entertaining factor. Actually, Sarah, I think you would like it. I wouldn't say it's so scary or anything. I mean, it's so well produced and so kind of, it's like a Jordan Peele production kind of thing. But it's
Oh, is it a
interesting.
Jordan Peele? I
Yeah,
didn't
he's like a
realize
producer.
that.
He doesn't direct it, which is why I think it was better than some of his stuff. But
So just the funny thing about Candyman, the first time, uh, I think it was like, I don't know, mid 90s, right? Like 1995 or something like that, when the first movie came out. And I remember I didn't see it in the theater, but so it had already come out on video, and I watched it at someone's house, and there was like it was like a party, like it was we were watching it as a party. So there were, a good 10 of us or whatever. And after it was over, we were all like, "Are you gonna be able to say do it in the mirror?" And everyone was like, "Yeah, I can do it." And even I was like, "I can do it. I can totally do this. This is so stupid. It's just a movie." And then I couldn't.
yeah, it's
I was like,
weird.
"No, like what if it really is real?"
Yeah, they do a really good job. What I really liked about it was that they really do a good job with mirrors. It's kind of a fun mirror play. I enjoyed that. But I think that theaters and just people putting out movies they know that people are wanting something familiar right now. So you'll notice in
Right.
theaters right now, there's like so many sequels and prequels and remakes, because people want something familiar. And the artier stuff is being bought by streaming platforms. And like a lot of artier theaters are either closed, for good, or they're still struggling to reopen or that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
I really enjoyed like the main actor. I can't remember his name, but he was really good, and there was definitely an entertaining quality to it. So I recommend it. Social commentary, all that good stuff. But speaking of movies, I wanted to throw out one that I recently saw to our 2120 South Michigan Avenue, who likes our movie recommendations, and all y'all out there, not just him slash her slash bear,
They them.
whoever you are, they them. So it's another British film, because the one I had recommended that you commented on was called La Piscine. So actually that was more like a French movie, but this is a British film from the 1970s. It's a really good, creepy little movie about a 15-year-old girl who kind of is coming to terms with her sexuality, and she sort of suspects that her brother is, maybe guilty of murder. It's called I Start Counting, kind of a weird title. It's from 1970, and it's starring the scene stealer Jenny Agutter, who I don't know much about. I've seen her before. She was in a Australian movie called The Walkabout. Great movie. She's awesome. There's something about this girl. She's in a lot of movies as like as a teenager, 20 something, and there's something you just want to watch her. She's really cute. So that's my recommendation for you this week. So let me know what you think. It's if you don't like horror, I wouldn't say it's horror. It's more of a thriller, and it's kind of a slow burn. So hopefully you'll be cool with that. Let me know.
Indeed. Uh, just a reminder, we do this on every show, but we'll do it again today. If you are not a patron of our show, I was about to call you a Patreon. I guess you're a patron. I don't know.
It happens.
It's whatever. Yeah. If you're not and you like the show and you'd like to directly support us, please do so. Patreon.com/have such a good day is where to find out more about that. And we have a new patron. A returning patron. And that's Craig Ozzy, who we love very much. Craigo! Thanks for coming back. And we know life gets in the way for a lot of you folks. And
It was neat to see him in our inbox, though, I have to say. I was like, yes, awesome.
yeah, I know.
Old pal.
I mean, we love all of our patrons,
We
but
do.
there are certain patrons that we especially.
They're all unique snowflakes.
Yep, they are, in the best way possible. So if you do want to become a patron, you can also join our Discord discussion. We chat with each other in between shows. It's really fun. Everybody's super cool. That's at the $5 and up per month Patreon level. You don't have to give $5 a month. It could be as little as $1. So totally up to you, but that's a fun perk for you, and that I would encourage you, if you like us, like join our community because it's more than just Heather and me.
It's super fun. Like we have people from around the world, around the globe, and right now we're talking about doggy doors that cats are using, and what else are we talking about? Like babies, and we're talking about music biographies.
I love this. I love your description. It's like doggy doors that cats are using, and babies.
Like I remember that one very specifically. But I really had a hard time not telling our Discorders this morning about my bear. My bear story. I like wanted
because
so
you wanted
bad
to keep
tell
it for
them.
the show.
Yes.
Oh.
So there you
We
have
also
it.
got a great email from Dundo Breadbox, and we had when Dundo had become a new patron of ours, we were like, wow, there's some bread theme going on here, probably. And they wrote in and said, yes, indeed, that is what I'm doing, and said I've tried baking many types of bread with varying success. Stayed with the French bread, using store yeast as a base for most recipes until the end of 2019. Just before 2020, my sourdough starter developed into its current form and has gone on helping me make a fresh loaf almost every week since. Sometimes I add food coloring to the discard as I bulk it up, so I have a purple or orange bread with my coffee. He says,
Wow.
he or she says, tip, coloring also helps with verifying a good mix of starter with hydration dough because you should avoid green. It camouflages mold.
Very interesting. I would have never thought to like color my
Never.
bread.
Never once.
I wonder what
Never
that's
once.
like to have purple or orange bread with my coffee. Like, is that like, what does that feel like? What?
I mean,
I'm
I guess,
fascinated.
it's sort of like food coloring. I know some food coloring is like bad for you.
Yeah, and then there's
kind of
like the
thing.
natural kind.
And then there's the natural. I remember with a friend of mine as a kid, sometimes we'd be like, Mom, can we bake cookies? And she'd be like, okay, you can, like go in the kitchen and do your thing. And we would food color the cookies, just so they were like more fun
Neat,
to
crazy
eat on the other
colors.
side. Yeah,
Yeah.
like green chocolate chip cookies or whatever.
Totally.
So I think Dundo, your tip on avoiding green is probably right because that just seems icky.
Yeah, it does. Ew, green
When
bread.
it, when
Except
it
for
comes
like,
to sourdough,
well, what about St. Patty's Day though? Would you make an exception then?
I don't celebrate St. Patty's Day, and I'm Irish. No,
Sarah,
that is amateur hour. No.
Seriously, it's so weird. I forgot to mention when we were talking about like the genetic stuff, I am way more Irish than I thought. I'm like Irish and English. So like we're like totally
Kindred spirits.
kindred spirits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've, pardon me. I think I've said this on the show before. I mean, I'm not 100% Irish. I've got other stuff in there. Yeah, I have French, I have English, a little bit of Swedish, but I'm mostly Irish. And so when people say, "What are you?" I say, "I'm Irish." And yet, that said, I do not celebrate St. Patrick's Day because St. Patrick's Day is for little kids who don't know better.
Or like I just remember being a young adult and just getting drunk, going like bar hopping, drinking lots of beer, and there's like a party in the street, that kind of thing. But that was another lifetime ago, I guess.
I also have, so I think it also really depends. Like you and I are both from the West Coast, and there's a lot less of, very long-term, racially oriented neighborhoods. It's like when I grew up with a bunch of kids, it's like, I don't know what your last name is. I never really thought about it. When you're on the East Coast, Boston, for example, a friend of mine who's Italian, who grew up in Boston, was like, oh, yeah, I mean, St. Patrick's Day was the day that you hid so that you wouldn't get beat up by the Irish people. Yeah, where I'm like, yeah, like that's just so not how I think about these things.
Totally.
But other people do.
Everything's so multifaceted, Sarah. Well, on that note, it's been wonderful chatting with you as usual.
It's been wonderful chatting with you.
I'm gonna
as
wrap
well.
this baby up. Baby.
Let's wrap this baby up. Yep. Put a bow on it, and put it under the tree.
Yeah.
And everybody, thank you so much for being with us all this time. We will do it again next week. And until then, I will remain Sarah.
And I will be Heather forever.
Have such a good day.
Adios.